Welcome to What's the Point? This is a special edition. We're having some coffee in my kitchen with one of my favorite University of Wyoming students, Grace Dorrell, who will be graduating in May of 2025. And we thought we would sit down and talk a little bit about economic development from the lens of someone who is about to enter her career in the workforce and just kind of get a feel for what young folks might be saying about the economy and about Wyoming and what you look at as you look toward your future. So Grace, thanks for sitting down with me and having some coffee and a little chit chat.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, so you go to the University of Wyoming.
Mm-hmm.
How did you decide your major?
I knew that I wanted to be in the College of Business, but I didn't know where in the College of Business I wanted to go. And I had done a lot of like art and graphic design, so I thought marketing and maybe even minoring or doing another major in graphic design was where I wanted to be for the most part.
Yeah.
But somebody told me to just take all the classes that I could and then to decide.
Okay.
And so that's kind of what I did. And I'm a sales major, also a marketing major, and then I just minored in leadership.
Okay.
So I've got a lot of things, which is almost better because I take 4 classes for the most part. Honestly, your sales class was like the first time I was like, I really think I want to be in sales just because I'm a people person and connecting with people is like, it's the core of sales essentially.
Right.
And I was like, that's where I want to be, even if I'm not selling something necessarily. I think those connections are important wherever I go in the world of business. So that's kind of how I decided.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so with that path, you haven't necessarily taken a straight line to like grinding it out in
No.
a certain number of years. Tell me a little bit about the way you've approached your education.
Well, I started working in high school, and that was the first time I was like, I actually love work. Like, my friends would be like, I have to go to work today. I'm like, I get to go to work today. This is like, I got excited to go to work. And so I think that's why I kind of wanted to be in the College of Business, because I loved that atmosphere in the first place. And I would say that it took me a while to understand that my school went right back to what I was doing at work. And I kind of had to focus more on like, this actually makes me better at work. And this means I can evolve here and here and here. And then as I got into like one of my first management roles, I started working a lot more and doing school a lot less. And then I realized that I could do better working in a management role if I was going to school more. And so I kind of took like a little bit of time as a part-time student, and then I went back to full-time because I was like, I want to be at school to be better at work.
Right.
So that was definitely a different perspective for me because I had a lot of, switching.
Yeah. And so tell me about the places, a little bit about the places you've worked, the environments in which you've worked. You've also taken probably a different approach than I had in college, which is you've had different jobs along the way. And so tell me your approach to jobs during college.
My first job, I felt like I had kind of reached the ceiling of what I could do. And so I was kind of doing the same thing every day, which is fine. And that stability was nice. But I wanted to see if there was other things that I wanted to do, especially because I don't necessarily know exactly what kind of job I want to go into. So I really wanted to branch out.
Right.
And I got to work for an appraiser who also had rentals, who also had storage units. And so there was a lot of eggs in a lot of different baskets after that. And I got to take on the majority of the rentals, which was a very fun and challenging task because there was always something. And there was always something that needed to be done and that like could be done more efficiently. Okay. And so that was cool to actually set up the processes instead of having them already there and to just follow them.
Yep.
So I kind of got to like play a role in setting up processes, and that was really cool. Especially.
So before we go on to the next one, let me ask you about that. So, how did your academic, like you said, your school life, how did that help shape what you were able to do there?
Definitely, I don't know, but it's hard to think of a very like specific moment, but in a lot of our classes we talked about, I also took an Excel class, which was very helpful. And at the time I didn't understand what I was doing in there, but it was very helpful because I learned that like Excel is pretty much my best friend, and then I need it every day, all day.
Yeah.
We also did a lot of like I don't know, like team projects in school. And so that helped me work with like other coworkers.
Right.
And that was nice. Marketing was a big part of it because there's so many different rental places here because it's a college town.
Right.
So I got to use a lot of like my marketing skills and also my sales skills when trying to like sell somebody an apartment. Essentially, I had to be like, but we have this here.
Right.
And, you know, like I kind of had to speak to them like they weren't even thinking about offering. So that was cool.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, so you had, that's a good example of an internship where you were able to use some of that.
Yeah.
But one thing I want to highlight, and I know you know this, but the person who owned that business, one of the things that they did that was really good was they allowed you to do that.
Yeah.
They sort of allowed you to use your skills and to bring forth your brain and make changes or make process where there wasn't any and do that. And that doesn't always happen. So I mean, that's a pretty fortunate.
No, yeah, it was really cool. And he was really nice because kind of at the beginning, he was like, this is what you're going to do. And then I was like, but what if I did this? And he was like, yeah, you should probably just do whatever you think is best. And then if it's not working out, change it.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, it was kind of like the coolest thing ever because normally there was lots of processes and lots of rules. And so I kind of got to be on the forefront with him instead of behind him almost.
Right. And so you weren't necessarily just coming to work and completing tasks. You were able to think about it.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I
All right.
a lot of thinking.
So that was a job. Well, so what did you do next?
Then I decided that I wanted to do something that was more sales focused or that I could at least attempt to get into sales or see that world better. And so I started to work at Albany Eye Care, which is just, optometry. And I was an optician, which meant that I was the person that fit you for glasses and contacts and all those things and sold you coatings and lenses and there's a million different options. And so I did really get to kind of sell a lot because some people would be like, no, I don't want that. I'm like, trust me, you do.
Yeah.
I got to give them like my whole spiel and stuff like that. I also got to talk to a lot of reps, which was really interesting. So Oakley and Ray-Ban and all those people. And I would always be like, I'm a sales student. What do you think about like being a rep? Are you commission based? Are you not? Like, how did you start? And where are you now? Would you stay with this brand like forever? Like, they're just like, I got to ask a lot of people a lot of questions, which was really cool.
Yeah.
And that was really exciting because it was definitely a world I didn't know.
Right.
And that was kind of also what I wanted was another change. Just like totally, like what if I wanted to, sell a lab, like a lens lab for the rest of my life? Like,
right.
I don't know. I didn't know, but I wanted to like just explore different options.
But you got exposed to things and then, all right, so now flip it back to the academic side. So tell me about your experience at the College of Business and, things that you have kind of been able to take advantage of or things that you have done. Obviously, I'm biased toward at least one class that you've taken, but you already earned your $20 for making that sound like it was a good class, so we don't have to worry about that anymore. So now you can be real about some of the classes that have stood out or the professors that have stood out.
Negotiations and conflict resolution. Greg Livingston taught that class, and it was probably one of like my favorite classes I've ever taken.
Second favorite?
Of course, second favorite.
Okay, they just want to make sure.
$40, so mostly because and why I liked your class too is because there was a lot of thinking and talking that wasn't solely about textbooks and vocabulary, which there are needs for that in certain classes.
Right.
But conflict resolution is just like totally something that happens anyways, and so you have to do that every day. Like every day there's going to be a conflict, whether that's like with a coworker or something happened with a different business that you're doing business with or whatever. There's always conflict. Yeah. And even like when I was working for the appraiser, we had some clashing personalities. So I had everybody take the Enneagram test and then I had everybody read everybody's Enneagram test. Right. And I was like, so maybe we should communicate differently because we're all different. Right. And so like you can say something to me that maybe won't matter. Right. But yeah, and so I kind of got to learn a little bit more about how to do that. Yeah. And also, I think it has a little bit to do with sales as well, because like negotiation is like a giant part of it.
Right.
And how we talked in your sales class, like people are going to come with tons of objections. And it's my job to, like come prepared with those as well, which was something else I learned in that class. Yeah. So it was really fun. Cool. And I got excited to go and, be prepared and that kind of stuff, which is like my favorite class to be a part of.
Right. Yeah. Right. So you've got 1 year left
Mm-hmm.
before you're sort of kind of looking at what the next step is. So, and you've got a lot of work experience too. So tell me about, as you look toward your career and what jobs you might want to do. Tell me about the things that are going to be important in those jobs. Like what to you is going to be the things that are going to stand out to you to say, I'm going to choose that employer over others.
Right. Definitely culture is the most important to me. I just started a new job, and everybody says hi, everybody wants to like greet you, and everybody is excited to be there, and that's kind of the culture I want to be a part of. That's exciting, and everybody wants to be there, and a culture that like throughout, like on my first day, they were like, if somebody says something to you, you need to say something to somebody else if you don't like that. Like we take culture very seriously here, and that's important to me because I think people say a lot, we have good culture and we've been working on our culture, but to know that it's actually implemented and that it's really a part of their brand is really important to me.
Right.
And so that's kind of like the things that's one of the big things that I want. And also like freedom, I think within my job is important, just because I did have a lot of freedom a lot of times. And so I kind of got to take that and jump, and I'm fairly good at it, I feel. And I'm good at asking for help, and so I like to know that I can have some freedom eventually. Yeah.
So that you can do things autonomously or let your ideas go. And at the same time, when did you learn a lesson or two from that?
Many times. Yeah. I used to work, and I had to get pretty much the supply of things, and I was like, I want to do one order by myself and for these things, and I probably messed up like $500 worth of supplies. So that was a big deal.
It was a big learning. You learned much from that, right?
And they were really kind because they let me do it, so they knew that I was probably going to mess it up. But I was like, I'm never gonna mess up that way ever again. Yeah.
So as you're going through your final year of college, or at least this run of college, and you start to look out there, what are the things about, so you mentioned culture is important. What are the other things that you think are going to be important, and like the culture, so the way people interact maybe, and sort of like, here's how we do things. But then also, and you mentioned sort of the freedom to try new things or to do things the way you might want to do them. But are there other elements of a job that you're going to be looking at? Like two jobs that have the same culture or the same autonomy, what are some of the other factors that you think are important?
Probably where they are.
Okay.
It's very interesting to me, and I love to ask people about why they came to Wyoming, because my choice wasn't necessarily like I wanted to be like a cowboy, it wasn't like that. It was like, this is going to be a good school and I can go for fairly cheap.
Yeah.
But I've never lived outside of Laramie, ever. I was born and raised here, and then I went to school here. So my parents are like a hop, skip, and a jump away. Right.
Close enough you can have coffee.
Yeah. And so I think like for me, where it is important. And I don't necessarily want to leave Laramie. I love Laramie. It's safe and it's quiet and it's very community based, which is something I will be looking for in the future. I spent a lot of time in Lincoln, Nebraska, and they're the same way. They're very community based, which might be, a university town might be like that kind of way. But also like Sheridan excites me. I think Sheridan would be a really cool place to live. Pinedale is really cool to me. Like there's like tons of places in Wyoming that I'm like, I want to go there and maybe see that. Yeah. But I do think I want to like leave eventually, and just see something else and probably come back.
Yeah. So what about job opportunities? How do you feel about job opportunities that you have ahead of you graduating from the College of Business?
I feel good about them. I feel like there's plenty. I think the coolest thing that sales has taught me is how to like sell myself for a position. Yeah. Like interviewing I'm not perfect at it, but I would say I do a very good job, especially if sales is not what they want. I know how to sell sales essentially. So I feel good about that. I also, like Laramie, I think me getting more into different places around town has made me realize that there are tons of opportunities here that I didn't even think about, even though I've seen them all, like,
Right.
you know, a million times. Like,
Yeah.
I drive down streets and I would have never thought, like, about certain places to work.
Right.
I-
But now that you've experienced
Yeah.
that by kind of getting out there and deciding to change things up or to go experience something else, now you see that. That's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Okay. What about this idea that you could leave and come back? What's the, like, talk to me about your vision of that.
I think Wyoming is very interesting to other people. Like, when I tell people I'm from Wyoming, they have a lot of questions for me,
Right.
especially if they're not from Wyoming.
Is the first one always, does it really exist?
Yes, it is.
Is that, and that's, so that's not just a meme or something like that?
No, it's actually happened to me too many times. But
We do exist, by the way.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
like a
we
full-on
have
state.
great people, but like it's here. It's very interesting, and people, you know, they also kind of understand like Wyoming, and that we have like a certain brand here, and that like almost like we have like our code, and that's like I become more reliable coming from Wyoming, you know, like how I am as a human, and that's cool. But I also want to experience, you know, like traffic and.
Are you sure? No, I can't wait for you to eat those words. But anyway, let's keep talking.
Like, I just think that if I left and experienced like a place that wasn't so familiar to me, like I got out of my comfort, I could come back and excel more than I would if I stood here in my comfort. Because sometimes that's what scares me about staying in Laramie, is that I'm very comfortable here. And so I don't want to be comfortable forever. And
So there's a growth element to leaving and saying, hey, this is a way I can grow or experience other things. And then so when you say maybe traffic is something you want to experience. I can't wait till you experience that. You may come back on that one pretty quickly. I will say, as someone who has spent a lot of time in other cities and couldn't understand traffic, but like that's okay. So besides the excitement of traffic that you are, what are some of the other things that you want to have?
like, it sounds crazy, but I love to see big buildings because I'm like, there, like, opportunity is in there. Like, I could be in a small cubicle one day and then have like a place in the corner where I have the view, you know, like that is like and we have
So the
tallest,
opportunity of that,
and sometimes it's not defeating, but it's hard to look at the tallest building being Whitehall. It's hard to like picture it, and so it's like really easily pictured in a place that has a lot of buildings. And especially like for all the people that don't know Laramie, they don't understand it the way I do.
Right, they may not see the opportunities, the number of opportunities that there are and things like that, but it's obvious in a bigger place, right?
And so those things like excite me, that I could like take an elevator to work every day, and that you know I could be with a lot of people and people I don't know either, which would be really exciting because I know a lot of people here. Right. So it's you know hard not to run into somebody that knows someone that you know at least.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, which is also a good thing. Like that's I think why I also want to come back, is because people love Wyoming and I love that, and it's like it's kind of deep rooted. So if you're here, you love it. Yeah.
So let me ask you this: what do you think old folks like me might say about Wyoming? What do you think we say?
It's quiet.
It's quiet.
Slow.
Slow. Yeah. Safe. Okay. All right. What do young folks say about Wyoming?
It's boring.
Yeah.
It's cold.
Cold.
Yeah. It's kind of it, to be honest. Most of it's boring.
Yeah. But what about the good stuff?
Outside is literally just out your door.
Yeah.
People from Colorado, they talk all the time about like their mountains, and I'm like, yeah, but ours are right there. Right there.
Yeah.
Like you can just go today,
Yeah.
like 20 minutes, and you're in them.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, I know, it's the coolest thing ever. And I'm like, I know, it's so awesome.
They just have to drive 40 minutes to do that 20 minutes.
But yeah, and like downtown, like I said, like we have like the coolest sense of community to me. Even people in Cheyenne like didn't even know that Jubilee Days existed, and then like they'll come here, or they'll be here still for the summer, and they'll come and they're like, this is the coolest thing ever. I'm like, I know. I love Googly days.
Yeah.
There's so much happening.
Yeah.
And you just, like, everybody loves learning.
Yeah, there's like hidden gems,
Yeah.
right? Hidden gems in communities that people need to kind of experience or,
Mm-hmm.
or to get out there.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were talking to your freshman in college self,
Mm-hmm.
what kinds of things would you tell that person that you know now, going into your final year of college?
School is important.
Yeah.
I definitely took it for granted for probably my first 2 years. I didn't really apply myself. And I think a lot of that had to do with I was working in a position where I felt like I was doing all the things I was learning.
Yeah.
And I was, clearly I had some frontal lobe development from then and now. But I didn't realize that I could go to school and actually learn. I didn't know everything. I didn't know. And I've been learning, which meant I've been better.
Yeah.
And that has made my opportunities even better.
Yeah.
And that I could go anywhere and I could do anything, and that, I don't have to work one job for my whole life. Like, I can, like a job or not like a job, or, like, find my actual passion and not just be good at something to be good at it.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, do you have any questions for me about like the economy in Wyoming or things that are going on?
I hear a lot of people ask, especially at UW, like, if people are gonna stay.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder how, like, you would even go about promoting, like, what Wyoming has.
Yeah.
And, like, in my supply chain class, we had, like, a lot of people come and talk, and a lot of them talked about Wyoming, because, like, Wyoming is a cool place for that.
Yeah.
And that was exciting, because I was like, this is the first time that I feel like people have talked about it happening here. Well, like, I had a sports sales class, and they talked about it, obviously, being everywhere else in the country.
Right.
And so I'm like, how will I know what opportunities there are besides, like, the career fair,
Mm-hmm.
if, nobody's talking about it?
So how do we make the opportunities more known?
Mm-hmm.
How do we make sure that the businesses that are in Wyoming know that there are great students and people who are, kind of striving and looking for things? And, frankly, I think that's an opportunity for us to get better.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of really cool businesses in Wyoming that I didn't know about 5 years ago. I didn't know that they existed. And I thought that, oh gosh, the one I'm in is the only one.
Yeah.
And none of these others could possibly compete. And what I found is that there are tons of these businesses all over the state that are doing really amazing things.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a bunch of amazing communities. Up until that point, all my travel had been all over the world, not in Wyoming. The only thing I'd seen in Wyoming are basketball courts, gyms for wrestling, or soccer fields or baseball fields.
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't seen the actual communities. And so I think that's a challenge, but it's also an opportunity for us.
Yeah.
And so programs that happen at the community colleges, programs that happen at the University of Wyoming, where we're bringing in employers and trying to help students understand what's going on, or get students out into the state. I think it's a really important thing, because we all come with a bias.
Right.
Like, this is where I grew up, and this is where I went to school, and this is where I worked, and this is, this path. Mm-hmm. And we don't always get a chance to expose ourselves to these other areas of the state, and they're there.
Right.
And so, like, maybe not skyscrapers, but there are a lot of really cool things that we've got to continue to show young folks, but also, and this is a little bit of a, sort of a more general way of looking at this, like, we also have to be attractive to young people that didn't grow up here. Right. And I think by doing that, more people being able to move to the state at a young age and find our communities to have all of the things that they expect, and to be a place where they could kind of run into people and be, have a lot of connections and a lot of opportunities. That's really what we're going for. And I frankly, we're at the beginning of that.
Right.
I think our approach is now, how do we understand what people want in their lives and want in their career? And then how do we make Wyoming a place that does that for more people? And I think this is for, at least for the Business Council, listening to people who are going to be affected by the decisions we make, not today, but tomorrow and the next day and 10 years, 20 years into the future. To me, it's more important to understand who it's really going to affect and how you see the world, rather than, you know, folks like me who are like, I kind of see the world this one way, and that's fine, but I shouldn't be the only perspective. And so I think there's a big opportunity for us, and we gotta take a hold of it, because we do, like you said, a lot of folks leave the state. And it's because of those things that you mentioned, like seeing the opportunity of what an elevator means. And I know that that's a really good metaphor, actually, Grace. So
it sounds like silly, but sometimes it's really hard to conceptualize like real opportunity when like your buildings sit on, you know, ground level, really. And that's it. And so, and even I think sometimes that excitement makes like you want to be like better too. And so I think it's hard for other people, like, I don't even know, to think about Laramie like that. And it's not just like a place of small businesses, like there's cool places here. And, you know, I got to talk to Jim Giese, and that was exciting because I was like, I didn't even really know that this existed. And I drove by it every day to get to high school. And it was interesting to like go in there and see how big the building was. And I got excited in there, you know, and ATBS, I got excited going up the elevator in there, and I never would have thought that, you know. So it's, I think like getting those like out to people would be exciting for them, because they don't even know it exists.
They don't know it exists. Sometimes in Wyoming we're maybe a little too humble.
It's our own fault.
Well, Grace, this has been by far my favorite What's the Point? And I appreciate you sitting down with me and talking through what you're thinking and where your life is going to take you. And I appreciate you doing it for our viewers and the folks that might be watching What's the Point? And I really appreciate young folks taking an active interest in where we're going. Because as a state, we want to be a place where people can thrive and have opportunities. And I think that this is going to be a key conversation in that. So thanks, Grace.
I'm really excited to be here.